Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the WWF didn't change game developers and they stayed with Acclaim? No, me neither. What about if ECW stayed in business? What would their games end up looking like while still being developed by Acclaim? Nah, I don't think about that either. But Acclaim did indeed continue to make wrestling games long after Warzone, Attitude, Hardcore Revolution and Anarchy Rules. Acclaim Salt Lake City, previously known as Sculptured Software and then Iguana West, put together a wrestling game that would celebrate the territory days of the business, signing up various wrestlers who weren't tied up in WWF contracts to present a game that, on paper, actually sounded really good. Think about it, you could choose a wrestler such as Terry Funk, Ted DiBiase, or one of the Von Erichs, and take that superstar on a journey through different territories of the 70s and early 80s, allowing fans to relive classic rivalries or play matches that could have only happened in a bygone era, and the roster available wouldn't be that bad either. THQ would start offering legends as unlockables in their WWF or WWE games, appeasing older fans by allowing them to play as their favourite superstars from back in the day. Legends of Wrestling was nothing but wrestlers from back in the day, and it really should have been something old school grapple fans could really enjoy. Unfortunately, things didn't work out that way. Good ideas? No, great ideas, but poor execution. The very fundamentals of a pro wrestling game is all about how well it actually plays when the bell rings, and Legends of Wrestling falls apart a little when things really get going. There's even more good ideas displayed during matches, however, and the grapple system that Acclaim came up with wasn't terrible, but we'll look at all this in today's video. This is Acclaim's Legends of Wrestling video game. So boot up the game and you'll get this intro video. Wrestlers perform moves, the moves get captured on Polaroid, the music picks up a bit and we see some of the gameplay. It doesn't look horrible. Before we dig deep into how the game plays and how the game looks, let's check out the roster. Everyone's unlocked here, and as you can see, there's some big names included in Legends of Wrestling, many of which had never been in a video game up until this point. Hulk Hogan's the main attraction here. He was front and center on the box art, and apparently he was the official spokesman for the game. Legends of Wrestling was released after the demise of WCW, and that's how Acclaim got some of these names. Some others, such as Jerry Lawler, were able to give their likeness due to not being part of the McMahon Empire during the game's development. So it looks like Acclaim were on the ball here when it comes to the superstars included in Legends of Wrestling. They didn't have to pay a king's ransom to get most of these guys included, and they completely avoided having to deal with big wrestling organizations. It's actually quite commendable. The colourful roster select though and the superstars included merely teased the player. You really do think you're in for a good time here with guys like Bret Hart, Ricky Steamboat, Billy Graham, Brian Pillman, the Rock and Roll Express, the Von Erichs, and Harley Race all being selectable. For more modern fans, you've also got the likes of Rob Van Dam and Sabu also on the roster. Pressing Y gives an alternate attire for the superstars, and some of these are noteworthy. You can choose between Flying Brian Pillman and the Rogue Horseman, for example. Subsequent Legends of Wrestling games did have better rosters. I talked about Showdown Legends of Wrestling in a previous video, where the main focus of that upload was all about who you could select to play with. Showdown still has one of, if not the greatest rosters ever in a wrestling game, and maybe I'll go back to that game sometime soon. That original video wasn't too hot, but still, Legends of Wrestling 1's selection isn't bad at all. Okay, let's start a match and I'm going to show you how to play Legends of Wrestling. Wrestlers have that action figure look as they make their way down to the ring. They don't look god-awful thanks to their pretty accurate attires, but they don't look good either. In fairness though, SmackDown Just Bring It on PS2 was the big WWF game that year, and I wouldn't say that that game looked all that good either, but it still looked better than Legends of Wrestling. Everything's exaggerated in Legends of Wrestling and things do look a bit ugly. Still, you can forgive it. Again, there's no big license here, and I'd say expectations were already low. During entrances, you can press buttons to perform taunts, letting you customize your entrance in the most limited way possible, and honestly, I'd rather have pre-animated entrances. I suppose it saved the developers from having to add more animations, and that's something you're gonna notice here too. A lot of animations are holdovers from previous Acclaim wrestling games dating all the way back to Warzone. Fucking atrocious. So, X is your strike button, a different direction with X performs a different strike. The black button is your run button and you can perform running strikes with X or Y. The Y button, when standing, performs a ready move, basically a move where you don't need to grapple beforehand. And the B button is the initial grapple button, or the tie-up button. This is where I think Legends of Wrestling could have been good, and this is what kind of separated it from other wrestling games at the time. From a tie-up, you're going to press one of the face buttons to move into another position. So for example, the Y button will prepare your character for a scoop slam, or the A button will put your opponent in a bear hug position. Once the position has been determined, then your character can perform a move based on that position. For example, you can perform an overhead belly to belly from the bear hug position. You can also place your opponent's head between your legs to set up pile drivers and power bombs, and you can also prepare your opponent in a vertical suplex position. There's also 4 tie-up states when pressing the B button when behind your opponent. For example, you can put your opponent in a full Nelson before performing a move. That's not all though. If we look at the heads up display, we'll see an indicator telling us when to tap a button within a certain time frame. Tap the button at the right time and you'll perform move combos, allowing you to do extra damage. This indicator also comes into play for counters. You'll need to press the right button at the right time to counter moves, and yes, it's annoying as hell at first, but you do get used to the timing the more you play. Fill up the blue bar under your name so it flashes, get your opponent in position, and you can perform your finisher. All finishers are authentic, and some look better than others, gonna be honest. If you've got a manager or tag partner, the D-pad allows you to call for help. Your ally can distract the referee, for example, and really that's all there is to it. You've got your action button to get in and out of the ring, you've got ground submission moves, aerial moves. The problem with Legends of Wrestling though is the fact that it really lacks any kind of fluidity. Even though moves have been simplified in comparison to previous Acclaim wrestling games, the overall awkwardness has been held over. Characters just don't move around naturally, they run way too fast, walk way too slow. The game's strict on positioning, and it feels like you've got a 50-50 chance every time you try a ready move or a lockup. Opponents have to be super close for strike moves, running moves are lightning quick, and it seems like the developers just doubled the animation speed. It just doesn't feel fun, and even with a deep understanding of the button layout and the combo system, you still don't feel like you're totally in control. You're at the mercy of the game's overall lack of polish, and it's a damn shame too. I really like the tie-up system, and successfully countering moves and performing combos feels very rewarding, but I'm also not sure if that's because I'm just overcoming the game's overall shittiness. Legends of Wrestling had good ideas, from its single player experience right down to the actual bell-to-bell in-ring action, but they didn't deliver on those ideas, and again, it's a shame, because this could have been good if they took the time to tidy up the fundamentals. Match types are seriously limited. Just take a look here and you can see there isn't much to do. No gimmick matches, no steel cage matches, no ladder matches. It's as basic as they come. There doesn't seem to be any rules in place either. You can use weapons and fight on the outside as much as you like, so every match is a hardcore match. Multi-man matches, particularly Fatal 4-Ways, tend to slow the game down, and you'll see frame rate dips depending on how many characters need rendered and what arena you've chosen to wrestle in. Putting more than 2 guys and a referee inside the ring is a miserable experience, and what's worse, you'll have to play quite a few multi-man matches in the single player career mode. Keep in mind that a lot of wrestlers have managers or allies that will come to the ring too, so the game begins chugging along if it has all these wrestlers and managers on the screen at the same time. You can play 4-corner tag team matches, which wasn't a mode many wrestling games offered at the time. I still don't think they're very common, but the camera angle's a little annoying, and again, you'll be putting up with decreased game performance. In regards to arenas, there's a good choice available, from gyms to backstreets, from crowded arenas to jam-packed domes. Legends of Wrestling does deliver when it comes to arenas, and this is something they'd expand upon in future games. You think maybe they're going for a more 70s or 80s look with things not being overly vibrant, but I don't think that's the case at all. I think it looks unintentionally uninspired. The more I played the game too, the more I came to really dislike the character models. I loved the over-exaggerated look of WWE All-Stars, but here, it just doesn't work. Some wrestlers don't look disproportioned at all, while others look insanely big. And these bigger guys don't look all that good. They look fat, not muscular. You may think I'm nitpicking here too, but these guys are the stars of the show, and it was a chance for fans to play as these guys for the first time ever. And Acclaim simply dropped the ball. Some may like the choices they made for character models here. I didn't mind it at first, but the more I played, the more I grew to hate it. Create a wrestler modes here. You can create a male superstar, a female superstar, or you can edit a legend already included in the game. Immediately when you get into the creation suite, you're reminded of WWF Warzone and Attitude. Just the character stance and the overall look of the default superstar instantly brings you back to the PS1 days. There's parts here to create wrestlers who were signed to other companies at the time, but generally they're gonna look like shit. Here's my attempt at creating Mick Foley. Seeing as there's no women in the game, you'll need to create a bunch of ladies yourself if you want a female roster. The developers didn't really have the women in mind here, and you can even make big hairy girls just like George the Animal Steel. It's good though that they allowed players to edit wrestlers already in the game. These are saved to new slots too, and they can be used in career mode. It isn't the worst creation mode in the world, but it's nowhere near the best either. Even for its time, it would have been more frustrating than anything, trying to make a particular superstar and settling on a few of the limited options you had available. It's alright though for editing superstars that are already in the game. Alright, one of the main selling points of the game, and really one of the main reasons I wanted to pick the game up, was for the career mode. When you hear that Legends of Wrestling lets you take a superstar throughout the territories, you instantly think, yep, that's a complete winner. That's a formula that's sure to be a success. In theory, it's good. You'll pick a region and you'll wrestle in cities within that region, taking on superstars that were popular in that particular area while building up your own popularity. It's not as good as it sounds though. They improved on this concept greatly with Legends of Wrestling 2, but Legends of Wrestling 1's career mode is so basic that it really starts to get on your nerves. It's repetitive as hell, even though there's elements here designed to make things interesting. Somehow, even with these elements, it's still incredibly dull. The idea here is to build up popularity in each region by having exciting matches in each city. A match excitement meter is now visible during exhibitions, and there's quite a few ways to build this up. Bloody matches, lots of combos, move variety, high spots, finishers. Doing all these things will make the match more exciting, while repetitive moves, failing to tag in your tag partner, stalling, or constantly failing combos will make the meter go down. Now, the problem with this is you don't even need to try. Just play a match as you normally would and you're going to fill up the meter pretty much every time. You don't need to go out of your way to have these exciting matches, so it's absolutely pointless. And if you don't fill up the meter, then all you need to do is play another match. Once you've become the most popular superstar in the region, you can then challenge for that region's championship belt. You also have to defend the belt once, rinse and repeat. You gotta do this 4 times in total, and honestly, I couldn't be annoyed after winning the Southeast title. The thought of doing it all again was laughable, but I pressed on for the sake of this video. If you pick a babyface, Jimmy Hart will be your manager, and if you pick a heel, you'll get Captain Lou. Your manager's job is to guide you through career mode by talking about upcoming matches and sending your lazy ass to the gym. You'll unlock ability points and new moves after going to the gym. Well, you'll unlock the ability to do new moves, and yeah, win every belt, go on to win the International Heavyweight Championship from Rob Van Dam, and you'll unlock some superstars depending on who you picked at the beginning of career mode. It's way too repetitive, and you're going to get fed up after half an hour. The draw of Legends of Wrestling is the roster and being able to play as all these different superstars. When you're stuck with one for a pretty long time with limited gameplay doing the same thing over and over, it gets boring. No gimmick matches to change things up, no cutscenes except for your manager saying 1 or 2 sentences in between matches.
Congratulations on winning your first title, baby! It won't be long now before you have all the gold!
There's just no need to play this mode at all. I've said it a few times now, but the ideas are good. The match excitement meter could have worked better. Traveling to different territories is a fantastic idea for a wrestling video game. Going on to face the world champion afterwards was also a nice touch, but you won't stick it out for long. The charm of wrestling all these legends of the past quickly disappears when you're doing the same thing over and over. Your reward for doing all this, besides the unlockables that can be obtained at the very start of the game via a cheat code, is some bullshit text ending that tells you a bit about the legend you selected. No video covering the legend's career highlights, just some shit you can read on Wikipedia. And I know they couldn't get footage from the WWF, but they could have done CG or something, I don't know. I may sound harsh here, but you do expect more. There's nothing else to say about Legends of Wrestling really. The game received average reviews by a lot of people who clearly hadn't played a wrestling game before. Surprisingly, GameSpy and Game Informer gave Legends of Wrestling a 7 out of 10, and I feel that's way too generous. You know, fair play for putting together a game without a big wrestling company behind it though. Gathering a bunch of guys who were no longer employed by WWF and putting them in a game was smart, and I'm honestly surprised this idea hasn't been revisited in recent times. Getting to play as superstars of the past who were no longer active or who had passed away was great for old school fans, and the concept of Legends of Wrestling, I feel, was a good one. Acclaim must have knew this too, even with Legends of Wrestling receiving mediocre reviews and what I assume were average sales because that information is hard to find. But even through all this, Acclaim developed a sequel that addressed a ton of complaints I and others had about the first game. The roster in Legends of Wrestling 2 was greatly expanded upon. More match types were added, such as cage matches and ladder matches. The career mode was completely redone with added storylines, including storylines specifically written for certain wrestlers within specific regions. And overall, the game just looked a lot better with better models and better arenas. I plan on covering Legends of Wrestling 2 very soon because the first game here leaves a bad taste in the mouth. I really wanted to like Legends of Wrestling 1 after giving it another try for this video, but it's as bad as I remember it really in terms of gameplay. Seriously, I think WrestleMania 21 on Xbox is better than Legends of Wrestling 1. But yeah, Legends 2 had guys like Eddie Guerrero, the Steiners, Big Sid Vicious, Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith added to the roster, and the game does play a lot better. I'm not going to say there's massive improvements in terms of gameplay, but it is better. I'll cover this one in the future, so if you're enjoying these game uploads and you're enjoying watching me put myself through absolute hell for your enjoyment, do me a favour and click the subscribe button, it helps out a lot. Thanks for watching guys, don't play Legends of Wrestling 1 for any reason at all, and take care.